My straight neighbor delivered my package, opened it, and unwrapped me instead. I never thought my life would change because of a mislabeled package, but that's exactly what happened last spring. My name is Alex. I'm 28, and I've been living in the same apartment complex for about 3 years now. I work as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm downtown, which means I spend most of my days hunched over my laptop, creating logos and website mock-ups for clients who can never quite decide what they want. I came out when I was 19, and while my family took some time to adjust, they've been supportive. Dating in this small city hasn't been the easiest, especially since the local LGBTQ+ community is pretty tight-knit, and it sometimes feels like everyone has already dated everyone else. My neighbor, Ryan, moved in about a year ago. He lives right across the hall, apartment 4B to my 4A, and from the moment I saw him hauling in his couch with the help of 2 other guys, all of them in basketball shorts and faded college t-shirts, I knew he was straight. Not in that stereotypical way people sometimes assume, but in the subtle mannerisms and the occasional comments about ex-girlfriends that would drift through our casual hallway conversations. Ryan works as a physical therapist at the sports medicine clinic near the university. He's tall, with dark hair that always looks like he just rolled out of bed, and the kind of smile that makes the corners of his eyes crinkle. We'd developed the kind of neighborly relationship where we'd collect each other's mail during vacations and nod hello in the parking lot, but nothing deeper than that. Let me explain why this context matters. In small apartment buildings like ours, you develop a certain rhythm with your neighbors. You learn their schedules, you recognize the sound of their footsteps in the hallway, and you form impressions based on the smallest interactions. Ryan and I had established a comfortable distance, friendly but not friends, the kind of relationship that could have continued unchanged for years. But that all shifted because of one package, one mistake, and one unexpected moment of vulnerability that neither of us saw coming. It started on a Tuesday evening in April. I had ordered something special for myself, something personal that I'd been contemplating for weeks before finally hitting the purchase button. It was a limited edition Pride collection from my favorite designer underwear brand. Not just any underwear, but beautifully crafted pieces with subtle rainbow accents and custom embroidery that I'd splurged on as a treat to myself after landing a major client project. The package was supposed to arrive while I was home, but a last-minute client meeting kept me at the office later than expected. When I finally got home around 8 that evening, I checked my phone and saw a text from Ryan. "Hey, got a package for you. Delivery guy said it needed a signature, so I signed for it. You can grab it whenever." Nothing unusual there. We'd done this for each other before. What was unusual was the second text that came about 20 minutes later. "Sorry, thought it was mine. Opened it by accident. Really sorry about that." My heart dropped into my stomach. I stood frozen in my entryway, keys still in hand, as I read that text over and over. The package contained items that were deeply personal, not just because of what they were, but because of what they represented. My identity, my self-expression, things I didn't typically share with straight male neighbors. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and more than a little embarrassed. How would this change our neighborly dynamic? Would he look at me differently now? Would our casual hallway conversations become awkward or, worse, stop altogether? I took a deep breath and texted back a casual, "No worries, these things happen." Then I added, "I'll come by to pick it up now if you're home." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, and appeared again before his response came through. "I'm home. Door's unlocked. Just come in." That seemed strange. Ryan had never invited me into his apartment before. Usually, our interactions happened in the neutral territory of the hallway. But I gathered my courage and walked across the hall. I knocked lightly before turning the handle and pushing the door open. Ryan's apartment was the mirror image of mine in layout, but that's where the similarities ended. Where my place was filled with colorful art prints and plants, his was minimalist, with a large sectional couch facing a TV mounted on the wall, a coffee table covered in sports magazines, and not much else. Ryan was sitting on the couch, the open package on the coffee table in front of him. He looked up when I entered, and I was surprised to see that his face was slightly flushed. "Hey," he said, standing up quickly. "I'm really sorry about that. I wasn't paying attention to the name on the label. I've been expecting some equipment for work, and I just assumed." He trailed off, gesturing vaguely at the package. "It's fine," I said, trying to sound casual as I moved toward the coffee table. "Really, don't worry about it." But as I reached for the package, I noticed that it wasn't just opened. The contents had been taken out. The 3 pairs of designer underwear were laid out on the coffee table, their rainbow details catching the light from the lamp beside the couch. Ryan had not only opened the package but had examined what was inside. I was trying to figure out what it was before I realized it wasn't mine, he explained, running a hand through his hair. And then I saw your name on the packing slip, and, yeah, sorry, I should have been mortified. I should have grabbed the items, mumbled something about needing to get back to my apartment, and fled. But something in Ryan's expression made me pause. He didn't look disgusted or uncomfortable. He looked curious, and maybe something else I couldn't quite identify. They're just underwear, I said with a shrug, trying to downplay the situation. Limited edition Pride collection. I treated myself after landing the Johnson account. Ryan nodded, still looking at the items rather than at me. They're nice, he said, and then, to my complete surprise, added, really nice design work. The embroidery detail is impressive. That was not the response I had expected from my straight neighbor. I found myself standing there, uncertain what to say next. The silence stretched between us until Ryan cleared his throat. Do you want a beer? He asked suddenly. I feel like I owe you a beer after invading your privacy like that. And that's how I ended up sitting on Ryan's couch, drinking a craft IPA, having a conversation about fashion design with my supposedly straight neighbor who had just seen my Pride underwear collection. The initial awkwardness gradually gave way to a surprisingly easy conversation. Ryan, it turned out, had an older sister who was a fashion designer in New York, which explained his appreciation for the craftsmanship of the items. She's always sending me articles about sustainable fashion and ethical manufacturing, he explained. I've picked up more than I ever thought I would about fabric quality and stitching techniques. As we talked, I began to relax. The beer helped, certainly, but there was also something disarming about Ryan's straightforward approach to the situation. He didn't tiptoe around the fact that I was gay or that he had accidentally invaded a private moment. Instead, he seemed genuinely interested in learning more about me. So how long have you known? He asked after we'd moved on to a second beer. That you were gay, I mean. I think I always knew on some level, I replied, surprised at how comfortable I felt discussing this with him. But I didn't come out until college. My roommate freshman year was openly gay, and seeing how confidently he lived his life gave me the courage to embrace my own truth. What about you? When did you know you were straight? Ryan laughed, but then his expression turned thoughtful. I've never really had to think about it, he admitted. Society just assumes everyone is straight until proven otherwise, right? I dated girls in high school and college because that's what was expected, and I enjoyed it, so I never questioned anything. That's heteronormative privilege for you, I said with a smile, but without any real bite. Never having to announce your sexuality to the world. Ryan nodded slowly. I never thought about it that way before. That must be exhausting, having to constantly come out to new people. It can be, I agreed, but it also gets easier with time, and it's worth it to live authentically. Our conversation continued late into the evening, moving from sexuality to our families, our careers, our aspirations. I learned that Ryan had moved to the city after a long-term relationship ended. He'd been with his girlfriend for 4 years before they realized they wanted different things in life. He learned about my struggles finding meaningful connections in the dating world, especially in a smaller city where the dating pool was limited. It's not that different in the straight world, Ryan said with a wry smile. Dating apps are a nightmare no matter who you're trying to meet. By the time I finally gathered my underwear and prepared to leave, it was past midnight. We'd gone through Ryan's six-pack and ordered pizza somewhere along the way. What had started as an embarrassing mishap had somehow transformed into one of the most honest conversations I'd had in months. We should do this again sometime, Ryan said as he walked me to the door. Without the accidental package opening part. I'd like that, I replied, surprised to realize how much I meant it. Over the next few weeks, our neighborly relationship evolved into something deeper. We started having dinner together a couple of times a week, sometimes at his place, sometimes at mine. We discovered a shared love of obscure indie films and began working our way through a list of recommendations from a film blog Ryan followed. What surprised me most was how comfortable it felt, how natural our friendship had become. But beneath that comfort, I began to notice something else, a tension that hadn't been there before. Sometimes I'd catch Ryan looking at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, his expression unreadable. Our casual touches, a hand on a shoulder, knees brushing as we sat on the couch, seemed to linger longer than necessary. I told myself I was imagining things, projecting my own developing feelings onto him. Because yes, I was developing feelings, despite knowing better. Falling for a straight guy was the oldest cliché in the gay handbook, and I had promised myself years ago that I wouldn't go down that road. The turning point came about a month after the package incident. We were at my apartment, halfway through a bottle of wine and a Korean thriller that neither of us was fully following because we'd been talking over most of it. The conversation had turned to our past relationships, and Ryan was telling me about his ex-girlfriend. The thing is, he said, swirling the wine in his glass, I cared about her, but I never felt fully, I don't know, present. Like there was always something missing, but I couldn't figure out what it was. That's common, I said. Sometimes relationships just don't have that spark, even when they look perfect on paper. Ryan nodded, but he seemed distracted. Have you ever? He started, then stopped, took a sip of wine, and tried again. Have you ever been with someone and felt like you were playing a role? Like you were doing what was expected of you rather than what you actually wanted? The question hung in the air between us, weighted with implications I wasn't sure I was reading correctly. I answered carefully. Yes, before I came out. Dating girls in high school felt like following a script someone else had written for me. I was going through the motions, but it never felt authentic. Ryan was quiet for a long moment, staring into his wine glass as if it contained answers to questions he hadn't yet articulated. When he looked up, there was a vulnerability in his eyes I hadn't seen before. I think I might be bisexual, he said, the words coming out in a rush. Or maybe I'm just curious? I don't know. I've never been with a guy, never even kissed a guy, but lately I've been thinking about it. A lot. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. I set my wine glass down carefully, buying time as I tried to formulate a response that wouldn't reveal how much his confession affected me. That's completely normal, I said finally. Sexuality can be fluid, and it's okay to question things. Have you felt this way before, or is this a recent realization? I've had thoughts before, Ryan admitted. In college, there was this guy in my anatomy class. We studied together sometimes, and I used to find myself looking at his hands, wondering what they would feel like. But I pushed those thoughts away because they didn't fit with who I thought I was supposed to be. And now? I asked, hardly daring to breathe. Ryan looked directly at me then, his gaze steady despite the uncertainty in his voice. And now I can't stop thinking about what it would be like to kiss you. The room seemed to still around us, the movie forgotten in the background. I had imagined this moment in different ways over the past few weeks, but the reality of it, the raw honesty in Ryan's expression, the vulnerability of his confession, was more powerful than any fantasy. You could find out, I said softly, if you wanted to. Ryan set his wine glass down and moved closer to me on the couch. His hand came up to rest against my cheek, tentative at first, then more confident as I leaned into his touch. When our lips finally met, it was gentle, questioning, a whispered conversation rather than a declaration. But as the kiss deepened, as Ryan's other hand found its way to the back of my neck, pulling me closer, any hesitation dissolved into something urgent and undeniable. When we finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Ryan rested his forehead against mine. Well, he said, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I guess that answers that question. Which question? I asked, still dazed from the kiss. Whether I'm attracted to men, he replied. Or at least, whether I'm attracted to you. The answer is definitely yes. That night marked the beginning of something neither of us had anticipated. We didn't rush into physical intimacy beyond that first kiss. Ryan needed time to process his feelings, to understand what this meant for his identity, and I respected that. But we began dating in earnest, exploring this new dimension of our relationship with both excitement and caution. For Ryan, everything was a first. The first time holding hands with a man in public, the first time introducing me as more than a friend to his coworkers, the first time navigating the complex emotions that came with challenging his own assumptions about his sexuality. There were moments of doubt, times when he questioned whether he was making a mistake or simply going through a phase. I tried to be patient, to give him the space he needed to figure things out, even as I worried that he might eventually decide this wasn't what he wanted after all. How did you know for sure? He asked me one night as we lay on his couch, my head resting on his chest as he absently ran his fingers through my hair. That you were gay, not bi, or just experimenting? I didn't know immediately, I admitted. Coming out isn't a one-time event. It's a process of becoming more comfortable with who you are. And labels aren't always necessary. Some people find them helpful for understanding themselves, while others feel constrained by them. I think I need a label right now, Ryan said thoughtfully. Not for anyone else, but for myself. To make sense of what I'm feeling. Then take the time to find the one that fits, I told him. There's no rush. As our relationship deepened, we faced external challenges as well. Ryan's friends were surprised when he told them about us. Some were immediately supportive. Others needed time to adjust their perception of him. His parents, whom he called to share the news after we'd been dating for 2 months, responded with confusion followed by cautious acceptance. As long as you're happy, his mother had said, though I could tell from Ryan's expression after the call that the conversation had been more complicated than he was letting on. My friends were generally supportive, though a few expressed concern. Just be careful, my friend Mia warned over coffee. Coming out is a journey, and sometimes people who are just starting that journey aren't ready for serious relationships. They need to explore and figure themselves out first. We're taking it slow, I assured her, though in truth, my feelings for Ryan were developing faster than I wanted to admit. He's worth being patient for. The real test of our relationship came about 4 months in, when Ryan's ex-girlfriend moved back to the city. Amber had taken a job at the same hospital where Ryan worked, and suddenly they were seeing each other regularly in the cafeteria and hallways. Ryan insisted it wasn't an issue. They had ended on good terms, and he had moved on, but I couldn't help feeling insecure. What if being with her had been easier? What if he realized he preferred the simplicity of a heterosexual relationship to the complexities of being with me? Those insecurities came to a head one evening when Ryan came home late from work, looking troubled. Amber asked me to get coffee with her tomorrow, he said as he sank onto my couch. To catch up. Are you going to go? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral even as anxiety tightened my chest. I told her I would, Ryan replied. Is that okay? It's just coffee. Of course it's okay, I said automatically, though it didn't feel okay at all. You don't need my permission to see friends. Ryan studied my face. But it's bothering you. I hesitated, then decided honesty was better than pretending. Yes, I admitted. Not because I don't trust you, but because I'm scared. This is all so new for you. And she represents something familiar, something society approves of without question. Ryan moved closer, taking my hands in his. Alex, look at me, he said gently. What I feel for you isn't something that's going to disappear because an ex-girlfriend wants to get coffee. I'm with you because this is where I want to be, not because I'm experimenting or going through a phase. How can you be sure? I asked, voicing the fear that had lingered at the edges of our relationship from the beginning. You've never been with a man before me. How do you know this is real and not just curiosity? Because I've never felt this way before, Ryan said simply. Not with Amber, not with anyone. When I'm with you, I don't feel like I'm playing a role or following a script. I feel like myself, completely and honestly. That's how I know. His words reassured me, but the real proof came the next day. Ryan met Amber for coffee as planned, and when he returned to my apartment afterward, his expression was lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. How was it? I asked, trying not to sound too eager for details. It was good, Ryan said, pulling me into a hug. We talked about old times, about her new job, and I told her about you. You did? I pulled back to look at his face. What did you say? I told her I was in a relationship with an amazing man who designs the best logos in the city and has a weird obsession with houseplants, Ryan said with a smile. I told her I'm the happiest I've ever been. In that moment, the last of my doubts melted away. Ryan might still be figuring out the exact label that fit him best, but his feelings for me were real. We were real. 6 months after the package incident that started it all, Ryan and I were having dinner at my apartment when he suddenly got up and went to his place, returning with a small gift bag. What's this? I asked as he handed it to me. Just a little something, he said, looking both nervous and pleased with himself. Open it. Inside was a box from the same designer underwear brand that had been in the misdirected package. When I opened it, I found a pair similar to the ones Ryan had accidentally seen that first night, but these had a custom embroidery, the date we had our first kiss. I thought it was fitting, Ryan said, watching my reaction closely. since underwear brought us together in the first place. I laughed, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift and what it represented. How far we'd come from that embarrassing moment to where we were now. This is perfect, I said, pulling him in for a kiss. Though technically, you brought us together. You and your inability to read package labels. Best mistake I ever made, Ryan murmured against my lips. Looking back now, I'm amazed at how one small mix-up changed the course of both our lives. Ryan still occasionally struggles with aspects of his new identity. The assumptions people make, the questions they ask, the way some relationships in his life have shifted, but he faces these challenges with a courage that makes me proud to be by his side. And I've learned that sometimes the most meaningful connections come from unexpected places, from moments of vulnerability that we never planned. That package was supposed to be a small gift to myself, but what it ultimately delivered was something far more valuable. A relationship that challenged both of us to grow, to question our assumptions, and to embrace the unexpected turns life can take when we're brave enough to be honest about who we are and what we want. Ryan still teases me about those rainbow-detailed underwear, especially when I wear them on special occasions. The package that changed everything, he calls them. And he's right, though it wasn't really the package that transformed our lives, but what happened after he opened it. Two people truly seeing each other for the first time, beyond labels and assumptions, and finding something worth unwrapping together, one layer at a time. Total _char_count, 18,732.